The day I lost my job, my mother-in-law texted, "Pack your things and leave. Useless people have no place here." 12 hours later, I was standing in court, filing a petition to block them from selling the very house I had once co-signed to guarantee for them. I am a root. They tried to bury me, but I will grow back, taller, stronger. If you want to see me rise, hit subscribe and be here when it happens. Everything happened so fast, like a storm tearing through my life, leaving behind a cold, empty space I hadn't yet found the words to name. Yesterday, I was abruptly fired. The HR manager avoided my eyes, her voice flat, like she was reading from a script. "We're restructuring. Your position is no longer needed." Not a word of thanks for the countless late nights I spent hunched over a screen until I was numb. Just a stack of papers slid across the desk, as cold as a death certificate for the job I had poured myself into. This morning, I woke with a weight pressing down on my chest, the early light slipping through the blinds but not strong enough to chase away the darkness curling inside me, and then my phone buzzed. A message from Claire, my mother-in-law. "Pack your things and leave. Useless people have no place here." Every word was a blade, sharp, clean, cold, cutting deep. Before I could take a breath to respond, Nathan appeared at the bedroom door. His eyes carried the same contempt I had seen too many times before, the same look he used when throwing impossible demands at me, like when he insisted I fund his failed business ventures. "Get up," he snapped, his voice thick. "Claire's right. You're a burden." A suitcase was thrown toward me, tipping over and spilling open. Clothes fell to the floor, the dull thud sealing the accusation. I stayed silent, not because I was weak, but because I was used to paying the price for this fragile, temporary peace. 2 years ago, when Nathan's business collapsed, I agreed to co-sign the mortgage loan on this house, believing it would hold the family together. Maybe they'd forgotten. Or maybe they never thought I'd use that very authority against them. I never told them about the consulting company I ran remotely, still bringing in steady profits, or about the villa I inherited from my mother that was solely in my name. Sitting up, I gripped my mother's silver pendant, whispering into the empty air, "This will remind you of your worth." They thought I'd walk away with nothing, but the truth was, I was only just beginning. Because what they never knew was that I had been preparing for this moment for a long time. When the front door slammed shut behind me, the sound echoed like a verdict. Across the street, Mrs. Hayes, our neighbor, glanced over and leaned toward her husband to murmur, "That's the woman Nathan said lost her job." My face burned, but before the shame could close in, Lauren Brooks, Nathan's sister-in-law, walked over, set her warm hand on my shoulder and said quietly, "If you need anything, call me." I just nodded, hiding my resolve deep inside. Last night, through the gap in the living room door, I had heard every word of Claire and Nathan's whispers. "We are about to get rid of her." Nathan's voice followed, low but clear. "She's too weak. She won't dare do anything." I froze, my stomach twisting. Claire's words cut deeper. Exactly. We can control everything without her in the way. They weren't just happy to throw me out. They were planning to erase me, to take everything I had built, everything I had sacrificed for, and claim it for themselves. I considered getting up, slamming the door, shouting to demand how long they had been plotting. But I remembered too well how easily Nathan could twist any confrontation, turning my anger into proof that I was unstable. So I chose silence, not to give up, but to wait, to watch, and when the time came, to strike back. I pushed open the door to the small cafe on Main Street, my shoes thudding against the wooden floor, as if trying to wake me from a daze. The smell of roasted coffee hit my nose, strong and warm, but it couldn't soften the cold tightening around my chest. I chose a secluded corner near the window, where the pale morning light spilled through the glass, catching the faint scratches on the surface of the old wooden table. I sat down, my hands gripping the hot coffee cup, the warmth seeping into my fingertips but never reaching my heart. I tried to breathe, to find a fragment of peace amid the wreckage of my life. Then my phone buzzed, a short, sharp vibration, like a gunshot in the quiet. I flinched, and the coffee rippled to the rim. The screen lit up, Sarah's name clear. Sarah, the former colleague who used to sit beside me in late meetings, sharing silly jokes in the middle of piles of paperwork. The subject line of her email was only 4 words, but enough to make my chest tighten. Elena, you need to know. I opened the email, my finger swiping the screen with a sinking feeling. The first line jumped out at me. Elena, you need to know this. I found this in the company inbox. Attached was a chain of emails, long and messy, but within seconds of skimming them, I felt the blood in my veins freeze. Emails between Claire and the bank director. In them, Claire wrote to my company, saying I was mentally unstable, that they should fire me before I cause serious problems. I read them over and over, each word a stone pressing against my chest. Claire, my mother-in-law, the woman I once called family, was strangling me with cold lies. They've been planning this for a long time. Suddenly, everything was clear. Another message came through. Lauren Brooks. Attached was a slightly blurry photo, but every deadly detail was sharp. A messy stack of papers on Nathan's desk, with a loan application lying on top. My signature, or rather, a forged one, scrawled beneath the section transferring ownership of the house to Nathan, to use it as collateral for a new loan. I blinked, my breath catching in my throat. The house, the same house that, 2 years ago, I had co-signed to save when Nathan stood before me, head bowed, voice breaking as he begged me to guarantee the loan to pull him out of debt, while Claire hugged me, her eyes shimmering as she called me the family's savior. And now they were going to steal it, using a fake signature to erase me. Lauren's message followed. I came to grab some things for you. Saw this on the desk. That signature's not yours, right? I looked at the photo again, my hands shaking so badly I had to set the phone down. The letters and ink danced before my eyes, but the meaning was crystal clear. They had been planning this long before Claire called me useless, long before Nathan threw my suitcase at me. I texted Lauren back a short reply. Thank you. Keep this between us. Then I sat still, my eyes locked on the forged signature on the screen, my heart burning with rage and yet cold in a dangerous way. I left the cafe, my steps heavy but no longer aimless. My mind was spinning, but one name lit up like a beacon in the dark. Layla. Layla, my mother's former lawyer, the woman with a cloud of curls and eyes sharp as steel, the one who had looked me in the eye at my mother's funeral and said, Elena, you're stronger than you think. I pulled out my phone, dialed her number, and when her voice came on the line, I heard myself recount everything, every detail, every line of the email, as if reading an indictment. Layla was silent for a few seconds, then said simply, Send it all to me. Hours later, I sat on the couch in a temporary apartment, the sunset painting the walls red, warming the room but not my heart. My phone rang again. Layla. I answered, my heart pounding so hard it felt ready to burst. Elena, Layla said, her voice serious but with a faint edge of excitement, like a hunter catching a trail. I checked with a friend at the bank. Nathan and Claire forged your signature on the loan documents, tried to transfer the house ownership, but they don't know that your guarantor role still controls every transaction. I blinked, my breath tight in my chest. Layla continued, I have the proof, a copy of the loan form with the forged signature, and confirmation from the bank that you are still the guarantor. She emailed me the files, pages of dry digital documents that were as sharp as weapons. I opened them, scanning each line, each stamp, each fake curve of handwriting. My hands trembled, not just with anger, but with relief. They had gone too far, but finally they'd exposed their weakness. What's next? I asked, my voice no longer shaking. Layla let out a short, cold laugh, like metal striking. Metal. We're taking them to court, Elena. They think they can erase you? They're wrong. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. I looked out the window, the blazing sunset like a fire igniting inside me. They think I'll bow, I whispered, my voice now solid as stone. They're wrong. 2 days later, I stood at the front entrance of the Houston courthouse, a bundle of documents clutched under my arm, heavy as a boulder even though it was only a few thin sheets of paper. The morning light slipped through the blinds of the building, falling across a marble floor worn down by countless footsteps. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the pounding of my heart, louder than the sound of my shoes on the walkway. The documents, copies of what Lauren Brooks had photographed, Nathan and Claire's forged evidence, along with confirmation from the bank, were my only weapon now. The courthouse wasn't grand, just a red brick building with worn stone steps and a creaking revolving door. I gripped the handle, my palm damp, and pulled the door open. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of polished wood and old paper, the quiet broken only by the slap of shoes on the tiled floor. I walked up to the clerk's counter, slid the bundle forward, my hand trembling only slightly. The clerk, a middle-aged woman with glasses slipping down her nose, looked up at me. "Motion to suspend?" she asked in an even tone. "Yes," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. "I want to stop any sale of property in my name." She looked at me longer than I anticipated, as if she could see through the strained smile to the exhaustion underneath. She nodded, took the papers, and began stamping. Each solid thump of the seal was like a heartbeat, making me stand straighter, firmer. When she handed me the official copy, she said quietly, "Good luck." I had just tucked it back into the file when I heard Nathan's voice from the end of the hallway, sharp as a blade. "What does she think she's doing?" I turned to see him striding toward me, face flushed red, eyes blazing with anger. Claire was right behind him, the crack of her heels on the floor like gunshots. Ethan, their lawyer, trailed behind with that crooked smirk still plastered on his face. Nathan jabbed a finger toward me, his voice a growl. "You have no right to stop us." I stood my ground, gripping the suspension order, my voice even and cold as steel. "Really, Nathan?" "This house exists because I guaranteed it. I have every right." Claire stepped forward, her face the color of boiled shrimp, her voice hissing but controlled so it wouldn't echo down the hall. "You think this little stunt will change anything? You're still a failure." I met her eyes, unblinking, unmoving. My voice was low, but sharp as a knife. "Maybe. But I'm a failure you can't touch." For a moment, the hallway seemed to freeze. Nathan blinked, his confidence faltering. Ethan cleared his throat, but I caught the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Claire's mouth opened, but no words came out. I didn't wait for them to recover. I turned and walked toward the door, Claire's heels chasing me like a storm that no longer frightened me. Outside, the late morning sunlight wrapped around me, warm on my face. For the first time in weeks, I breathed easily, as if my chest had just been freed. That afternoon, I sat across from Layla in her small but private office, the window shut, blinds half drawn so the light fell just enough across the dark wood table, where we laid everything out like dissecting an old wound. The company contracts were marked with yellow, sticky notes, each page a piece of the bigger picture. The bank documents stacked in chronological order, every number printed in stark black against white. Claire's emails accusing me of being mentally unstable, bolded at the subject line and time sent. The photo of the forged loan application blown up so large I could see the slight tremor in the hand that tried to mimic the tilt of the H in my name. Layla, glasses on, tapped her fingers lightly on the edge of the file, her voice hard as steel. "This is clear fraud. We're going to make them pay." I nodded, but inside was a tide both cold and deep, as if everything I had swallowed down was now reclaiming space to breathe. We spent 2 full days in that room, coffee cooling into brown rings on saucers, highlighters carving bright trails across paper, the printer spitting out one page after another. Layla drilled me on how to answer briefly and precisely. Only state the facts, no commentary. When they ask why you stayed silent, you say, "Because I was gathering evidence." When they call you unstable, you hand them the psychological assessment from your former company. Every line she gave me felt like a stone paving the road I was about to walk. No frills, no hesitation, only the solid weight of what cannot be denied. On the second night, when we closed the file, I found myself touching my silver pendant, the cool metal running up my neck and into my chest, like a reminder that I wasn't just preparing for a trial. I was preparing for the moment I would reclaim the right to exist on my own terms. 1 week later, I walked into the Houston courtroom. The air inside was thick with the scent of polished wood and old paper, the silence broken only by faint whispers from the gallery. I could feel the eyes on me, sharp as pins against my skin, even before I found my seat. Claire was already there, sitting in the front row, chin lifted like a queen waiting to be praised. When her eyes met mine, her lips curled into a cold smile, void of any warmth. She leaned toward the person beside her, speaking just loud enough for me to hear. "She's still pretending she matters." I didn't respond, only gripped my mother's silver pendant, the coolness beneath my fingers a quiet reminder of my worth. Nathan sat across from me, his expensive suit fitted perfectly, his shoulders set like he was the embodiment of stability. He glanced at me, a flicker of contempt in his eyes. When the hearing began, their lawyer Ethan stood, his voice smooth as silk. "Your Honor, Mrs. Elena has no financial stability after losing her job. She is unfit to retain the property in dispute." The gallery murmured, the whispers swelling like waves. I drew a deep breath, stood, my hand trembling slightly but my voice steady as stone. "Your Honor, I own a multi-million-dollar consulting company, and the house they are living in only exists because I guaranteed its mortgage." I opened my file, pulling out each piece of paper, the contract for the company I quietly built, the bank guarantee, and the photo Lauren had taken, the loan application with my forged signature, the email Claire sent to my company accusing me of being mentally unstable to pressure them into firing me. Layla stood beside me, adding in a voice sharp as a blade. "This is blatant fraud. They forged a signature to steal my client's property." The gallery stirred, whispers breaking into audible gasps. Someone muttered, "Oh my God, really?" Nathan's face flushed, his hand clenching the back of his chair. Claire's smirk faltered, and I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. Judge Harper, a tall man with a calm demeanor, studied the documents, his stern gaze cutting through every lie. He brought down his gavel, the decisive crack silencing the room. "Ownership belongs to Mrs. Elena. Mr. Nathan is ordered to pay damages for the act of forgery." Claire shot to her feet, shouting, her voice breaking, "She's lying!" I met her eyes, my own voice low but sharp as a knife. "No, Claire, I'm just refusing to be erased. The air in the room felt frozen. Nathan lowered his head. Ethan glanced down, his crooked smile gone. From the back row, I caught Lauren's gaze. She gave a small nod, a silent confirmation. After the hearing, I stepped into the hallway, the morning light streaming through the glass, bright as a promise of freedom. I barely had time to savor it before Claire blocked my path, her heels striking the floor like hammer blows. She stood close, her voice a venomous hiss. "You think you've won, Elena?" "This isn't over." I looked her straight in the eyes, not stepping back, my voice even but cold as steel. "Maybe, Claire. But you have nothing left to take from me." Nathan stood behind her in silence, his eyes empty like a crumbling wall. Mrs. Hayes, our neighbor who had been at the trial, stepped forward and shook her head at Claire. "Shameful." Her voice was quiet, but in the still hallway, it rang like a verdict. Claire stiffened, lips pressed tight, unable to answer. I turned away, walking out of the courthouse, carrying the judgment that closed the months of being cornered and opened a straight road to the only place I wanted to go, my mother's villa. I drove through the empty streets until the black iron gates of the villa came into view, the place my mother once told me, "This is where you will find yourself." The hinges groaned as they opened, and the stone path, layered with crisp, dry leaves, crunched beneath my shoes, leading me to the house standing tall against the green of the forest. Wind slipped through the crack of an open window, carrying the scent of damp earth, pine wood, and the freshness I thought I had lost. In the quiet living room, I opened my suitcase, placing each item exactly where it belonged, as if putting back together a part of my life, until my hand touched the silver pendant, cool, round, weighted with memories yet lighter than everything I had just let go. I set it on the mantel, right beneath the photo of my parents smiling, as an answer to all the silences I had kept over the years. This villa, my mother's inheritance, was not just a home, but the place that pulled me out of Nathan and Claire's siege, the proof that I still had a place, and that it was a place I had chosen for myself. The next morning, I knelt by the gravel path leading to the door, my hands caked in soil as I pressed each flower root into the small holes I had dug. The brown earth clung beneath my nails, the smell of fresh grass mixing with the faint salt of the sea breeze in the distance, and in the middle of it all, I felt my heart settle, like water returning to stillness. My phone buzzed again. A message from Claire, a few lines of threats faintly visible in the preview, but I didn't open it, just left it lying still on the step, letting the sea wind keep erasing whatever was left. I sat and looked at the row of flowers I had just planted, wondering, was leaving without looking back too cold? But the answer was already in the wind, in the smell of freshly turned earth, and in the sunlight slipping through the branches no longer blocked. No. It was the only way to be free. They had tried to bury me, but I am a root, sinking deep, holding fast, and growing back, stronger than ever.